You know, Trevor, I am particularly intrigued by the idea that the Roman Republic has something to do with the founding of our very own country. Our next segment, From Rome to America, delves deeper into the fascinating topic.
As previously mentioned, the United States owes many of its philosophies that created our system of government to the Roman Empire. And now we will bring back our reenactment team to bring to life these ideas and the concepts that formed our great country, often utilizing the exact words and writings of our founding fathers.
Much of our modern society has its roots in ancient Rome. We would like to focus on how Roman adaptation of Greek philosophies led much later to the European Enlightenment. And then, in combination with many legal and political practices adapted from Rome, it all resulted in the Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, and U.S. Constitution.
You need to understand what is meant when we refer to the Enlightenment. During the scientific revolution, scholars in Europe began challenging long-held beliefs. They used logical thought to explain how the world worked. They believed reason could be used to achieve three great goals: knowledge, freedom, and happiness, thereby improving sight. This use of reason led to a time that is now called the Enlightenment.
Enlightenment thinkers used ideas from the ancient Greeks and Romans. Aristotle, for example, taught that people could use logic to discover new truths. The Romans took ideas from the Greeks and developed the philosophy of the natural law. Positing that certain rights and beliefs are inherent by a virtue of human nature. They applied these beliefs not just to the natural world, but also to the human world of society and government.
The foundations of American government lie squarely in the 17th and 18th century European Enlightenment. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, James Madison, and others took the brave steps of creating a government based on the Enlightenment values of liberty and equality. More than 200 years later, that government is still intact.
In 1776, the Continental Congress selected Thomas Jefferson of Virginia, John Adams of Massachusetts, Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania, among others, to draft a Declaration of Independence.
Jefferson authored the first draft. The Revolutionary Treaty began with reverberating prose taken directly from the philosophies of natural law.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Our founding fathers were prolific readers of the classics and wrote extensively. They identified with the Romans in many ways, even taking pen names that were Roman, such as Cicero for John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, Cincinnatus for George Washington, and Julius Caesar for Alexander Hamilton.
Hello. We would like to speak with some of our floundering fathers. Silly me. I meant founding fathers. Gentlemen, would you consent to answering some questions about your philosophies? First, Mr. Jefferson, you wrote the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, which was intended to break with England. However, is it not true that many elements that went into the Declaration actually came from an English philosopher?
Yes, of course. This is true. The great British activist Thomas Paine had much to say. He also cautioned us to consider carefully. He wisely wrote, The Romans were strongly possessed of the spirit of liberty, but not the principle. For at the time, they were determined not to become slaves themselves. They employed their power to enslave the rest of mankind.
Mr. Franklin, you have something to add?
Of course. Payne also said, when we were playing for posterity, we ought to remember virtue is not hereditary. And as I have often pointed out, democracy is tools and lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote.
Oh, silly goose. Thank you for that, Dr. Franklin. How important was your role in founding our country? The French finance minister, Jacques Turgot, claims that you snatched the lightning from the skies and the scepter from tyrants.
Well, the revolution was the work of many able and brave men, wherein it is a sufficient honor if I am allowed a small share.
Oh, how sweet. That's very kind of you.
Well, as I once said, humility makes great men twice honorable.
Tell us something about your role in drafting the Declaration of Independence, my favorite.
Well, Mr. Jefferson here invited me to read his draft of the Declaration. I made a few changes. For example, I did strike out the words sacred and undeniable and replace them with we hold these truths to be self-evident.
What a monumental adjustment. But you, Mr. Madison, you'll be pleased to know that the history books absolutely hail you as the father of the Constitution.
I'm honored to be so remembered by history. I believe strongly in the principles of a republic, by which I run a government in which the schemes of representation takes place, opening a different prospect and promising the cure for which we are seeking.
Mr. Adams, what about you?
I firmly believe that the Roman Constitution formed the noblest people and the greatest power that ever existed. Almost everything that is estimable in civil life has originated under such governments. A new country can be planted only by such a government. Isn't that right, Mr. Hamilton?
Yes, despite Rome's many failings, its appeal for its light and its pluralistic culture, its flexibility in policy, its balanced constitution, and its religious toleration. For me, Rome was the nurse of freedom and attained to the most height of human greatness. And yet, neither the genius nor the manners of Rome is suited to the age we live in.
Thank you. Gentlemen, before we close this interview, it is a well-known fact that you, Dr. Benjamin Franklin, were famous for your aphorisms and proverbs, as well as spending some of your free time flying kites in thunder and lightning storms. Anyway, would you please grace the assembly with a few pithy words of wisdom?
Oh, I couldn't, but perhaps you, gentlemen, remember something charming I may have once said.
There are no gains without pain.
Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I'll learn.
There are three things extremely hard: steal a diamond and to know oneself.
Either write something worth reading or do something worth writing.
Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain. Most fools do.
The Constitution only gives people the right to pursue happiness. You have to catch it yourself.
Nothing can be said to be certain except for death and taxes.
Oh, that just warms my heart. Thank you, all of you. Mr. Hamilton, the latest, greatest 21st century hip-hop musical on Broadway happens to be named Hamilton, after you. It celebrates the fact that you, a poor immigrant from the West Indies, born out of wedlock of mixed racial background, orphaned when you were but young, became a founding father of our nation, one of its great thinkers. Not to mention that your lovely face is on our modern $10 bill. Would you and all of your friends kindly perform a selection from this fantastic modern musical?
Certainly.
I'm not throwing away my shot. Hey, yo, just like my touchdown, young, scrappy, and hungry. I'm not throwing away my shot. I'ma get a scholarship to King's College. I probably shouldn't grab a dag, I'm amazing staunch. The problem is I got a lot of brain lines but no polish. I got a holler just to be heard with every word. I drop knowledge, I'm a diamond in the rough. A shiny piece of coal, trying to reach a goal. My power of speech, unimpeachable. Only 19, but my mind is older. These New York seasons get cold. I shoulder every burden, every disadvantage. I learn to manage. I'm how we're gonna branch. I walk through seats, vanish. Planets, the balance, spark into a flame. But hey, it's getting dark, so let me spell the name. I'm the A-L-E-X-A-N-D-E-R. We are meant to be a colony that runs independently. Meanwhile, Britain keeps sitting on us endlessly. Essentially, they tax us relentlessly. The King George is around and a spending spree. He ain't never gonna set his descendants free. So there'll be a revolution in this century. And to me. And don't be shocked when your history book mentions me. I will lay down my life if it sets us free. Eventually, you'll see my ascendancy. And I'm not throwing away my shot. I'm not throwing away my shot. Hey, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry. I'm not throwing away my shot. I'm not throwing away my shot. I'm not throwing away my shot. Hey, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry. I'm not throwing away my shot. I'm not throwing away my shot. I'm not throwing away my shot. Hey, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry. I'm not throwing away my shot. Everybody sing!
Tell your sister that she's gotta rise up. When are these colonies gonna rise up? 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 Rise up!
And I am not throwing away my shot. I'm not throwing away my shot. Hey, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry. I'm not throwing away my shot.
Gonna rise up.
Time to take a shot.
We're gonna rise up.
Time to take a shot.
We're gonna rise up. Rise
Yo,
up.
time to take a shot.
Rise up. Rise up.
Time to take a shot.
Rise up. Rise